You're listening to This Week in E-Commerce, the Ecom Nation podcast. Dive into the top online retail headlines with your hosts, Paul Waddy and Chia. Let's load up the cart. This Week in E-Commerce, episode 18. I am Chia, and back with me is Paul Waddy. Paul, welcome back. We missed you last week.
Yeah, I missed you too. How was it? How's your week been? We and you in particular have had a huge week.
We have. It's been gigantic. Look, I think since I was last recording last week, what's happened? We've had the Ecom Nation offsite. We won the award, which I mentioned before on last week's episode, but wasn't able to discuss with you, which was really cool. And then we also had the Nora 10th birthday. Well, you had the Nora 10th birthday celebrations, which you attended last Wednesday.
Yeah, yep, that was great. National Online Retail Association turned 10, and that was a great milestone for Nora, of which we're both a part. And big shout out to Paul Greenberg, who has been doing this for 10 years. Whenever you feel tired, just remember that. And whenever you feel old, just remember that Paul's been doing this since I was, only a couple of years out of school. So big shout out to Paul, who really has led the way. And Ecom Nation winning that award, best digital marketing agency in the country at Nora Solutions Award was huge. And then the offsite for Ecom Nation, which is our marketing agency. How was that? Just quickly, Mel.
It was fantastic. Being a remote agency, it's always good to be able to bring the whole team together. So we do this twice a year. We do this in mid-year, and then we do this at the end of the year. And it's just a great chance where all the people who you get to know, throughout the year, working closely together, actually coming together and have that to build that extra dimension as a team, where suddenly you can go out, you can break bread together, you can have a drink, you can hang out, you can find out a little bit more about each other. We played some fun team building games, as you need to do at these sort of things. But it was a really great day, and it was good for you to dial in as well for a little bit. Hopefully, we are to get you in town for one of these 1 year eventually.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Very good. Yeah. You also missed the wrap up of Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I did mention that Shopify released their reports, which showed significant growth year on year, from memory of something like 19% or so. And it was good to see Australia as being their third largest market over the sale period. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah. How do you know where we rank when we're not on sale? Much further down the list.
They didn't say that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There's no doubt I think we go a lot harder at Black Friday than they do even in the States here. But interesting. I'll check that out.
Yeah, they definitely have. It's it is part of that changing consumer trend where, Australia has become so sale driven, and B, it's like we've just replaced Boxing Day with Black Friday now.
Yeah, someone mentioned to me last week on that cruise, they said, do you think December will be back bigger than November now? And I was like, no chance. I think the point they were making is with a little bit of retail open again, but retail is still not sort of booming. I think it'll be interesting. Like total retail will be interesting. I hope people get out and have a shop over Boxing Day, but I have a feeling that November sales will still obliterate December somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. And just realized I did not put my phone on Do Not Disturb. So it's on Do Not Disturb now. It's the first time it's actually happened in the history of us recording this.
I know.
All right, on to the first story, because there is a lot of news to cover off. One which is very interesting and has been in the cards for a little while is that learning from the lessons of social media, the EU have come out with some very sweeping landmark regulations for how AI should be used, which is really interesting. Obviously, they've been working on this regulation for a little while. It's not something which has just happened in the last few months. They first started writing this back in 2019. And it has since had to be revised with the growth of LLMs, so large language models such as ChatGPT. So they've now significantly expanded that. Also in terms of like image creation with things like DALL-E and Midjourney as well. It's quite fascinating, like the amount of regulation which has been, because one of the things which I think from a retail perspective we really need to consider is if you use AI in your marketing, in your products or anything like that, particularly if you use it from a marketing standpoint, it appears that you're going to need to declare that. So some of the things we've been talking about in terms of like the advantages of being able to whip up some AI created creative for your ads or your product shots, or lifestyle photography, things like that. You're now going to have to whack like a big generator with AI sticker on it. So I'm wondering like how much of a, if you do that, A, will consumers care, and B, like, is it going to mean that people are going to be? Is it going to slow the growth, and reduce the potential harm from it?
Firstly, I'm not really opposed to that idea, just obviously because we've seen how AI can be used in kind of impersonating people and so on, and kind of framing people in a way. There was that, I think she was a Bollywood actress that was accused of shoplifting, and it wasn't actually her, and the image was manipulated. So I don't really have a problem with that. In the same way that, advertisers often have to put paid endorsement on certain, there's a paid promotion, these are paid actors, the Oral-B dentist, I can't show you his face on TV. These are paid actors. Like, yeah, we kind of knew that. So I don't think there's any surprise that not everything in advertising is real. And then going into creative, I think that's much the same. I think we sort of, consumers kind of know that a lot of this stuff is scripted. And again, I think for certain protections, like people don't want to be catfished by AI. And so AI is in its early days. And I think it does open up. I think the government needs to do this because it does open itself up to scams and all sorts of things. So I don't have a problem with it. I don't think consumers will have a problem with it, like in the same way that I don't think it'll impact anything in largely the same way that governments will put disclaimers around gambling websites and things like that, and then still allow them to advertise. I think it's box ticking in a way. And I don't think, for the majority of e-commerce businesses, I don't think they intend to use AI in a harmful way or a misleading way. So I don't think there'll be anything wrong with that. I think it's a good proactive move that keeps keep kids safe and vulnerable people safe and so on. And it's also just a sign that they acknowledge that AI is going to be used a lot in creative moving forward. We're certainly tinkering around with it. We've got some clients that are tinkering around with it, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think as long as the creative is accurately reflecting your brand and your product, I have no problem with using AI, and I have no problem with the warning that this brand is using AI. No problem.
I think a couple of things, like with the last couple of weeks as well, ChatGPT no longer allows you to create images or write copy in the voice of anyone, and now actually comes up with a disclaimer saying that, hey, we won't let you actually do this, so you can't actually use a famous person and say, write me a speech like Barack Obama, or generate an image of Barack Obama riding a unicorn into the sunset, something like that. So whereas only a couple of months ago they would, and so I think this is part of that recognition that a lot of harm can be done from this, particularly even if it is satire or parody or things like that. It can be abused, and it's great that the EU is yet again leading the charge on this. Obviously, with GDPR laws in the US, in EU, causing a lot of changes and a lot of businesses to really think about their data strategy. I'm glad that there is a government out there, even though it may end up being relatively toothless. It is still good to see that that there are governments out there who are thinking about how do we act on stuff like this swiftly rather than let it ride. Like, for instance, the Australian government has only just agreed in principle to a proposed set of new laws to address the harms of social media platforms, where they've recognized that, there's these digital platforms like Google, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, which Australians use every day, often are unavoidable gatekeepers between businesses and consumers, giving them huge influence across the whole economy. It's like, we've kind of known that for a little while. So I feel that those laws are a little bit slow off the mark in terms of keeping the vulnerable, keeping the society in general safe from harm. But it's great they're finally doing it. I'd like Australia and also America as well to be a bit more proactive with how we do regulate this and provide some guidance of how businesses should be using this new technology.
Yeah, I'd like to see. I'd like to see how this goes. Looking at in Australia, the ACCC trying to, combat introduce mandatory codes of conduct to stop these digital platforms being anti-competitive. I'm interested in that. We've talked about that with Amazon and in the US and pricing and so on. I think the issue with GDPR, when that was rolled out and everyone kind of went, oh no, there's huge fines on the table. Really, the advice was, and largely again, it's like, well, you need to have an internal policy. It's like, yeah, that's no one's going to do that, or you might take it seriously until someone gets whacked. So it'll be really interesting to see, in the way that the US has kind of gone after Amazon. It'll be interesting to see what happens here, who the ACCC target. I mean, surely they'll have to target someone to go after. They're talking about here things like fake reviews on competitors, which is great. I have no idea how they'll police that. But this is an issue, definitely, is people leaving fake reviews and so on. And you can actually still do that on Amazon, which bugs me massively. So it'll be interesting to see how they tackle this. And if the ACCC look to set an example of someone, which kind of hope they do.
Absolutely. Hopefully, there are no fake negative reviews of the of Shopify for Dummies.
There are. Oh. So there's one guy who left a review, 1-star review, who said, "I hate Shopify." It's like, he goes like, WooCommerce is heaps better. I'm like, thanks, buddy. He's like, Shopify's way too complex. And I was like, dude, leave this review on Shopify's thing, not on my book. He hadn't even read the book.
But there is a statistic, actually, and we were kind of getting off topic here, but there is a statistic about actually seeing negative reviews that it actually adds trust to it. I think Amazon actually came out with some statistics quite a while ago that the minimum review you should be aiming for is 50. Anything less than 50 isn't considered trustworthy, but as soon as it passes 50, regardless of whether they're 3-star, 4, 5, 1, it just adds credibility to your product. So you really want to aim for 50, and then even with like 5 stars, I think the optimum, like the most trustworthy number was something like a 4.8. If it was 5, they didn't trust it, especially if it was like 50 5-star reviews. But if it was like 4.8, it'd be like, okay, yeah, this is really good. There's some legitimacy to it.
Yeah, like if you look on the Amazon bestsellers list, they're all around 4.4 to 4.5. And you're right, like the negative reviews is like this, people read that and be like, oh, well, he's reviewing the platform, not that, like, really, I don't care. So, but I think reviews are important, and there's a lot of retailers still using apps that give you fake 5-star reviews and so on. And it'd be interesting to see this unfold.
Yeah. Now, Dan Neary, the Vice President for APAC from Meta, was recently interviewed by Inside Retail, one of our favorite publications, and he had some few comments to make just in terms of like how Meta is performing. The biggest one which caught my eye from this is something which we've talked about before, but just to show that Meta is continuing to kick amazing goals. They are back up to their pre-pandemic high in terms of their share price, in terms of their earnings. They are just a cash printing machine right now. It's a cash volcano, as Scott Galloway would say, with more and more people just continue to advertise on there, even as people say that it doesn't work or things like that, or the rise of other platforms like TikTok. Meta just keeps growing and growing and growing, and in particular, what they've cited is just the growth of short form video, that the time spent on short form video of people watching short form video in APAC has increased by 50% so far, which is just insane in the last 6 months. There are more than 2 billion reels are watched more than 2 billion times a day, and that's doubled in the last 6 months.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Good to see that data, because we know, kind of particularly as in the agency side as well, that reels perform really well, not just in your advertising but in your organic, and they can be a great way to grow your following. I think brands that, and I've seen this, even with my own stuff, the static, some of it does okay, the static imagery, but a good reel quite often smashes static, double or triple the click-through rate. And there's a skill to those reels. Like, I really like Nike's reels at the moment, the hammock brand. I think they're really clever and really scrappy with the way they put them together, but they're great little short stories. So I think that it's any e-com brand that's not utilizing reels is just missing a trick. But I would also say that to brands that are listening and maybe losing followers, play around with it a little bit, like try different things. I think my personal opinion is that some of the reels that I see around are way too scripted and, too beautiful and too brilliant. And if you look at what performs well just across socials, I'm talking about big content creators, it's not always highly polished stuff, And I think the particularly in the course that I'm teaching, a lot of people are a bit scared to give Reels a go. But what you got to remember is everybody started no likes. Everybody started no likes. So what you've kind of got to overcome that fear of getting 3 likes. And the other thing that I've learned personally in this journey, that it's about consistency rather than finding the viral reel. So trying to create that incredible viral reel is just like a complete waste of time. And it's just about consistency. And the best advice that I got on this was for Reels particularly is post every day. Post every day for 30 days. And what you have after 30 days is 30 days worth of great data with which to go back and review your Reels. So yeah, I think Reels is definitely where it's at, Mal, and brands should really be posting them probably every day at this point, for sure.
Absolutely. It's interesting that what they're saying about Reels as well, that it's really more of a discovery engine. So rather than actually going out there with something which is highly conversion focused, really just putting some content out there, which is going to get someone's attention so that they may want to explore further as well. I was doing some analysis last night on a client's creative and looking at what actually performed the best. And again, no surprises there that the highly produced campaign stuff, which they invest tens of thousands of dollars every month into producing, the return on that is just, it was barely a tenth of what the organic stuff was doing. But the organic stuff was just stuff they shot in the office. It was really nicely shot against nice backgrounds, things like that. But it wasn't this heavily produced, traditional ad type. It was really just one of their staff members getting on there, putting on product, showing it off, and talking about the product. That just performed like about almost 100 times better. It was insane when I was looking at the view through conversions. So just something to keep in mind that you don't need to overthink it, like you said, Paul.
Yeah, and I think people always say to me, particularly in the group, they're like, "Oh, I'm not comfortable being on socials. Why would people want to watch me?" And I encourage businesses to look at the entrepreneurial side and say, "Well, why don't you actually let people in on the journey? Like, actually say, I'm starting a business. This is what I'm working on." Represent Co. have a great documentary on YouTube that does that. We don't have to go to that level. That's quite well produced. But if you're ever having a bit of self-doubt about Reels and what to post, just remind yourself that people watch Gogglebox and Big Brother, and then that should give you enough confidence to turn the camera on yourself and and record something.
All right. And our last story, which we want to cover off today, is one from a few weeks ago, but we never really had time to talk about it. But I know it's something which is very much a culmination of everything we've been talking about, it feels, which is Oroton Group, the luxury retailer of accessories and apparel, etc., have recorded a net profit of $8.12 million in the 12 months up to the end of the financial year, which is up 3.5 times from the previous year. So this is despite only, and I use air quotes here, increasing their sales by 25%. They were able to grow their net profit by 3.5 times.
I mean, this is the best way to grow. So 25% growth is strong enough. Like, that's amazing. But then if you're growing 25% and double and making your profit go 3.5 times, that's a sign of a really good business. Actually, in our little network, we have a client, and I'll just come back to this point. We have a client who's done similar. So Mal, someone who's done similar to this actually is, you missed the board meeting last week, but eShopping Group, which without going into their numbers, year on year spent, I'm going to say less than 100 grand more on their expenses and tripled their net profit. They also grew their revenue somewhere in the vicinity of 20%, same sort of number, 25%, and tripled their profits while only spending 100,000 more for the year on their operating expenses. And that is a sign of great business. And I have no idea of anybody in Oroton, but whoever that CEO is, and it does mention her name, Jennifer Child, you just look at that and you know that they're just running a tight ship. So, $8 million in EBITDA, in net profit, 8.2 million is you're really sort of kind of sitting on $100 million business there, just about. So massive congrats to all those people there. This is exciting. And it also just goes to show what we always talk about, Mal. You can do it. And even these bigger retailers like Oroton, that's what they focus on. It's efficiencies. It's not just sales. So big congrats to them.
I think there's a great quote here. Like, you probably hear Oscar in the background.
Yeah.
Oroton customers prize quality over quantity, and they are increasingly conscious of their impact on the world. I think it's having that laser focus as well, that it's not necessarily about selling more stuff, but doing it right and increasing your margins on there. Like, it's not just about, growth at all costs, but if you increase your margins and still sell the same amount of stuff, you're going to be better off at the end of the day. And I love that approach, and you see it more and more. We talked previously about Vuori, the US brand, which is doing similar things as well. That it's by kind of focusing on doing the basics right. It's not sexy, but it works. And it leads to you having like a business which is doing $100 million, or thereabouts, and making like amazing net profits on that as well, which is fantastic. That's really what you want to see out of any business. I was thinking earlier today about one word which you used to hear people say a lot is that they want to scale their business, or talking with agencies and things like that who would always say, we're going to scale your business. And when you're talking about what scale means, it means, we'll spend more money and then you'll make some revenue back. But really, that's not scale. That's just, if you spend more and you make like proportionally less, that's not really scaling at all.
No,
your marginal costs are increasing.
Yeah, if you have a cup of water and you pour water in, which is sales, and it goes up, and then you pour water out, which is your expenses, then it comes back down to where it was or lower. And the cup is literally the same size. So it's this whole, we talk about this a lot, but it's this whole misconception about what scale is, what success is. But, final point on Oroton there would be as well, just 4 interesting stores. So one, they're still opening stores, which proves that you can still combine these. She talks about the digital channel, the CEO, but also they opened stores in Paddington and Mossman, which are two traditionally boutique areas. Paddington, incredibly challenging. But Mossman, they obviously are zeroing in on a clientele, even though that Paddington is very, very tough. Mossman isn't super busy, but they're zeroing in on a targeted customer. And Claremont, I don't know a whole lot about Claremont in WA, although I think one of our clients has a store there. And then a pop-up at the airport. And I'm really interested in airport retail because I think they do really well from what I hear. But so there's 4 stores there which have gone as part of the channel. So they're not just all digital. The strategy has also included 4 stores. So, man, they must have had a busy year.
Well done to Oroton. And I think more and more we want to be highlighting these sort of retailers who are making these moves, doing things right, not necessarily going for the big flashy things, but just really doing things the right way, just building up really strong businesses on reasonable growth and really good margins.
Yeah, simple.
Yep. Fantastic. All right, Paul, that's all we have time for. I'm not sure when this will come out. When this comes out, the next day will be on this Thursday. We'll be hosting our 2024 predictions webinar. Paul and I will be recapping our predictions, our 10 predictions from 2023. You can tune in to find out what went right and what went wrong, and also listen to what our predictions are going to be for 2024. Paul, that's all we've got time for.
Okay, Mal. See you during the week.
All right. See you later, guys. Thanks for listening.
Bye.